All righty, so we will get started. We've got an amazing group of attendees, so we want to be respectful of you all's time. We don't take for granted that you chose to participate and listen to this webinar today. We know that we are in a time right now where we're getting request after request for Zoom meetings and phone conferences. So thank you for just taking time out of your day to listen, to receive this information, whether it be for yourself or for your family members. Mental health truly does matter. So today is all about talking about, coping and managing our mental health during this time of crisis, during this time where we're all dealing with an array of emotions and anxiety. So I'm very excited for us to be able to have this conversation today. My name is Patricia Williams. I'm the Director for Family Services at Louisville Central Community Center. Louisville Central Community Centers, we just have wanted to really resonate the message loud and clear that we care during this time where the community, we really need to rely on each other. We've heard the campaign, One Louisville. We truly are, better together, stronger together. So this is one way that we want to continue to advance our mission of advancing equity and empowering families. And we look at the family dynamic, we're always considering the whole person. So we're looking at not only mental health, but financial health through entrepreneurship and employment resources, but then also physical well-being. So if one wavers, it tends to affect the other. So we definitely want to talk about how we can all, be mentally well both during and after this crisis is over. Because although it may not look like it, this is going to be over at some point. So we are definitely looking forward to some great information and some great conversation. So just to give you an idea of what to expect in this conversation today, hopefully you felt welcome when you were invited, when you heard about this, and that you feel welcome now. So we will have a moderated panel discussion. So we've already got some prepared questions that we're going to address with our subject matter experts. However, no fear, at the end, we will offer some opportunity for Q&A. So you will be able to post questions on Facebook if you're streaming live. You will also be able to ask questions in our chat room. So if you think of questions as the speakers are talking, as the panelists are giving information, then please feel free to go ahead and post that in the chat room, and we will ask those to the panelists at the end. We will also be sharing some polls throughout. There's a few polls, just basically 2-3 questions that will help us better understand the mental health of the community, of you as participants. We don't want to guess, right? We also want to get some good information to determine what resources you need after this workshop webinar is over. So we will also definitely share resources, contact information of the panelists that have so graciously agreed to lead this conversation today. And then we'll have some closing remarks. So that's our plan for today, and we are excited. So Janicia C. Gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce my colleague. She has been with Louisville Central Community Center since early January, I believe. She is our adult services coordinator and financial coach. This is her vision, really wanted to bring to the forefront a conversation about mental health and being completely and totally well. So we're just excited to have her on the team and just excited about what's to come. So Janicia is going to be our moderator and lead this discussion today. Janicia?
Hello, Patricia, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, hello, everyone. Hope everyone is staying safe and well during these times. Like she said, my name is Janicia C. I'm the Adult Services Coordinator and Financial Coach at Louisville Central Community Centers. I'm so excited to be able to lead this conversation. This topic is really dear to my heart. I'm a big advocate for mental health, and I really believe that we need to be able to have this conversation and really shine a light on mental health and give it a platform. That way we can talk about the stigma, be able to break down those barriers, and ultimately provide resources for those within our community. especially now during this pandemic. We know that the pandemic has caused significant health issues and disruptions to our world. And with recent restrictions and stuff being lifted, we know that it's going to create a long-lasting impact for all of us. Some of the things that we know that it's been affected is economic loss. We know that there's been a tremendous amount of folks losing their jobs, work and school closures. We know that there's been a reflux of emotional distress, a lot of anxieties and fear. And so we really want to be able to address all of those issues because we know that they all can take a toll on everyone's mental health. And so I am so excited to be here with our wonderful panel. I wouldn't be able to have this conversation without their knowledge and their expertise. So I'm really excited to jump into it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have Tiffany Farmer with Best Life Mental Health Services. We have Damon Cobble with Minority Mental Health Project. We have, excuse me, Mariah LaCorgan with University of Louisville Counseling Center. And we have Lauren Meyer with Martin & Meyer Counseling. So welcome, panel. Thank you so much for joining us. If you all would like to just give a brief introduction about your roles and kind of what you do. And Damon, I'll start with you.
Yes, hello, Facebook family. Thank you all for providing this platform to have such a good conversation. I need a conversation. My name is Damon Cobble. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I just also received my certification as a clinical certified trauma specialist for families. And I'm also the president of the Minority Mental Health Project. And I'm also an employee with the Jefferson County Public School System. I've been with the district now for 6 years as a mental health practitioner.
Thank you, Damon. We'll go to Lauren.
Thank you. Same. I really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this panel today. I'm very excited about it. So my name's Lauren Muir, and I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm the co-owner of Martin & Muir Counseling, along with Renisha Martin, who's also a licensed counselor. We provide individual and family therapy. Our focus is we work a lot in the schools. So we do school and home-based therapy. We also see office in the clients, but definitely have a strong presence in the school working with JCPS families. Also, we recently collaborated with Have Hope Counseling, which offers medication management and therapy as well. So we work from an approach, a wraparound approach, where we want to make sure we're addressing all the needs of the family, being able to provide therapy, case management, and medication management.
Thanks, Lauren. We're so happy to have you. Mariah?
Hi, you all. I'm really excited about being a part of this panel today. My name, as she said, my name is Mariah LaCorgan. I'm actually a licensed professional clinical counselor as well. I work with the University of Louisville Counseling Center. So that is the counseling center that is on campus. So the population that we treat is any enrolled student. So that includes any of the Health Sciences campus, the Belknap campus, and even some online students. We offer individual, group, couples counseling, where only one of the individuals in the couple needs to be an enrolled student. And we also offer several workshops.
Thanks, Mariah. Like I said, so happy to have you with us today. And Tiffany?
Hi, I'm also really happy to be here and excited to have this discussion. So I am the owner of Best Life Mental Health Services. We're located on Westport Road, and we see couples, individuals, and families. I personally treat adults and work a lot with individuals who have relational difficulties that they've noticed over time, and that can be in an individual or couple setting. And I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much, panelists. Like I said, we are thrilled that you all are here, and we know that it's going to be a great conversation ahead of us. So right now, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next slide, and we're going to be doing a poll. So you should be seeing a poll screen, and I will let my colleague Patricia Williams take over.
Yes, so you all should see on your screen 3 very short questions that you can answer related to mental health. So we will just give you a few short seconds, about 30 seconds, to answer those questions right on your device. And again, we just want to have solid data around, what is the pulse of mental health amidst this pandemic. And then we want to be able to address, resources and areas where we need more support, because there are people that are really looking to help and invest in areas that will help us all come out of this stronger, wiser, and better, right? So thank you guys for participating. The results are coming in. We're going to give it just a few more minutes. So definitely seeing some changes in mental health. So before COVID-19, it looks like 62% had good mental health or felt good about their mental health. And now during COVID-19, we've got only 29% stating that they feel like their mental health is good. So we can definitely see that there are some effects to what's happening right now. So we are looking at this definitely as a resource for us to be able to determine how we can provide more support. So thank you guys for participating. As I said, we'll do a couple of more polls throughout the conversation. I'm going to go ahead and end this one, and we will move right along. Back to you, Janicia.
Thank you, Patricia, and thanks everyone for completing those polls. Like she said, it's going to be really helpful information to kind of assess how everyone is feeling before the COVID-19 and kind of what are the effects of how it has really impacted us after the pandemic. So I want to go ahead and get started. And Damon, I will start with you. As a mental health provider, just tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your work.
Well, personally, as a licensed clinician, I have a moral and ethical responsibility to make sure that I myself is regulated before I can support anyone, who, with their challenges. So for self-care, I believe it's important to underscore the importance of, first of all, spotting the signs of being overwhelmed. And then I set realistic expectations for my daily accomplishments. I try to feel good about what I do accomplish instead of expecting more or looking to what I did not accomplish. And also I lean on my social circle. I have a very small social circle. Whenever I feel anxious or whenever I feel pressed, in which we all are gonna feel some of that anxiety during these times, I lean on my social circle, people who I can call and vent to and lean on. And then, and lastly, personally, I have a 100-pound friend named Zeus, who is very playful and supportive of me. So I use him as a support as well. He's very, very therapeutically. But as we continue to monitor the reports and adjust to the impact of COVID, we must assure, our community and partners that as an organization, personally, and even as an organization, the Minority Mental Health Project remains committed to addressing the gaps in the research, to underserved communities and minority communities, receiving mental health services, while also keeping at the forefront the safety and the well-being of the community. So with that said, organizationally, we are currently modifying our infrastructure and our protocols to implement the delivery of telehealth services, and more specific actions that we've taken, through collaboration, the Minority Mental Health Project. We're helping to address the digital divide, which is also a barrier to not only receiving therapeutic services, but also providing those services to low socioeconomic communities. And also amidst COVID, we have been successful with collaborating with partners like Robert Moore with Tech Louisville, Radon Long, she works with digital inclusion with Metro Housing to help address that digital divide. We have also partnered with Pivot to Peace program of peace education and Hope Wellness Center too, with the community in terms of volunteerism and educating the community on COVID coping and testing. So we are also providing therapy resources. You know, we are being utilized as a resource hub. And lastly, we are engaged with partners collaboratively in virtual meetings, you know, on specific topics that support professionals and also the community at large. So having to adjust, you know, to this pandemic, it has, you know, on the fly, it's been very challenging, but needed to make sure our community isn't short on services.
Well, thank you, Damon. I'm sure that this pandemic has really allowed your organization to kind of work within a new system.
Yeah.
It sounds like you developed that, and so that's always good to hear. Have you had any other challenges as far as having your clients access services? You talked about a digital divide. Tell us a little bit more about if there's any challenges or if there's any statistics that you can share.
Yeah, well, I mean, digital divide, that's a concern that continues to grow in the community. You know, on the other side of the digital divide, of course, you have the underserved communities, the poor communities not having reliable access to the internet. You know, and in 2019, you know, the International Telecommunications Union found that 97% of the world's population live in an area and have access to the internet availability, but only 53% are connected. And so we are currently, we currently see companies locally, you know, providing provisional internet, you know, as we go through this pandemic. But their internet services are going to be cut off in about 3 months. So we know, you know, we got to look at, you know, sustainability in terms of that digital divide. We got to look at long term. You know, the internet services, once they're cut off, that's going to disrupt the continuity of care. You know, whether you seeing a therapist or a medical doctor. So I will definitely request that we look at those gaps, those digital gaps amidst COVID to help our community sustain the needed long-term care.
I definitely agree, and it sounds like you all are in the right direction. So I'm going to go to Miss Lauren. Speaking of just mental health and why it is important overall to really address the issues and really be able to talk about it. Tell us a little bit more about why is it important that we do address mental health during this pandemic and how it can kind of affect folks.
I think that right now with the COVID-19, everyone has experienced a lot of life changes. So obviously that affects our mental health. So I think it's an open discussion that needs to be had, you know, in workplaces and families, amongst adults, with children, because there's just a lot of uncertainty with what everyone's day-to-day looks like and even what the future holds. I think most of us have been impacted in some way, whether that be social isolation, daily routines, finances, employment, childcare. There's just so many things that families and individuals are trying to overcome and find new structure day to day in how to meet, you know, life's challenges right now. So all of these different things have created a lot of fear, anxiety, stress. A lot of people are feeling really lonely right now, sadness. So it's definitely something that you want to be okay letting someone know that you're not okay, you know, because this is one thing, even though maybe our specific struggles look different, we're all being impacted in some way. So I know we talked about how to talk to children and how to talk to teenagers. I think that's an open conversation that needs to be had, because we know as adults, we have multiple conversations with our parents or our friends on how we're doing, but the kids are also struggling in their own way.
And I definitely agree that the conversation needs to kind of expand to, you know, talking to our children and our families, especially when we're thinking about, you know, loved ones being lost and just really that impact that it can have on the family at whole. Speaking from a business standpoint, I know you and a few others are business owners. So how do we begin to have this dialogue with our employees and with our staff about mental health?
I know for us, we have several monthly meetings. I feel like we're always meeting, but you know, we have staff meetings, we have individualized meetings for our case managers, and then same for our therapists. So that's, again, definitely an open conversation that we have to not only check on them, but do case conferences to see what kind of barriers they're trying to overcome with their cases and how we can handle those appropriately. And again, just to reiterate to everyone, that we're here, to support them.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I'm glad that you all have that structure in place. So thank you for answering that. We're going to go ahead and move forward with our presentation. We do have another poll for you all, so I will let Ms. Patricia take over.
Okay, so we've got another poll, and we are launching it right now. Just another few short questions. If you can go ahead and answer those. Definitely some good conversations so far. We do have a question in the Q&A. So we will grab those towards the end. So feel free to keep posting questions there. You can chat in the chat box as well. Really some good dialogue as far as mentioning young people and youth as well. Because I will tell you today, when I told my 2 kids to just stay away, don't make any noise, don't do anything weird, because I got to get on this webinar that's going to be live, and we have a small house, so there's not a lot of places to hide. And my daughter, who is 17, said, well, what about us? My mental health is not good. So then, I kind of laughed, but then I said, okay, so are you okay? Like, let's talk seriously. So they definitely, have some feelings about what's happening right now as well. So just a few more seconds. It looks like we've got about half that have completed. It's great that it's looking like a lot of us have people that we can turn to for help. And it definitely looks like majority of us are experiencing some degree of, emotion around what's happening, and, know how to handle it when these emotions flare up. So just a few more seconds. Please participate in the polls. All right, we will go ahead and wrap this one up. There will only be one more of these, but again, this is just helping us to be able to provide some information about, what people need, what you all need. All right, back to you, Janicia.
Thanks, Patricia. And it's so important to be able to address the questions in the poll. Just thinking about how we manage our mental health. I know I've been really just surprised about how many emotions that I've had throughout this whole pandemic. And so really, you think you're a strong person, and then all of a sudden these, emotions come up. It's really important to be able to address and know how to manage them. So Mariah, I will go to you now. Please just give us some coping mechanisms that we can do at home. I know a lot of people have a lot of fear and anxiety and just a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen. I know a lot of the restrictions are starting to lift, but moving forward, we need to know how to cope, and what kind of strategies can we implement?
Thank you, Janicia. I think this is a great question because we are, through all of this, we are going through so much of an adjustment, and I think it's natural to have some stress and have some kind of things when you're figuring out how to adjust. But not only that is these adjustments have been very sudden, right? And I don't think anybody knows the exact answer, but I do think utilizing the coping skills that we have or working to explore some coping skills is really important during this time. So what I would encourage people to do is, even looking at some of those traditional coping skills, with people talking about reading, writing, spending time outdoors, if you like that. I know Damon spoke earlier about spending time with, I think he was talking about his dog, but spending time with friends or animals, whatever you enjoy doing. I am personally, though, a big advocate on, I think a lot of times people feel like they need to do a certain coping skill, like, oh, I need to go jog, but they don't really like running. So please don't do that. Let's find ones that work for you. Everybody's an individual. That means coping skills work differently for you, and you have different ones, and that's completely okay. As far as coping with it and the anxiety, I think another important piece is to just normalize the experience right now, and that a lot of people are stressed. This is a stressful time. So if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling some of those emotions that you mentioned earlier, to just give ourselves some grace. because
Yeah.
this is a hard time, and reaching out to some of those supports, whether that be, professional supports. Obviously, a lot of us are counselors, or even just friends and family. And I know I've had several meetings um, with my colleagues where not all the time we're talking about work things. Sometimes we just need to, utilize each other as supports as well. So I think that's really important for coping during this time.
Yeah, and you've made some several great points, and I just want to kind of hone in on kind of creating this new normalcy that we've kind of found ourselves in. I know I've been home for like the last month, and this is actually my first time returning to the office, and so I've really had to structure my days at home, to kind of adjust to being a parent, also working from home. Just give us an example of how can we structure our day to kind of implement these mental health strategies and also manage just our day-to-day activities that we're not having to do from home.
I think very much like you said is coming up with that kind of schedule. And like I said, recognizing that it is a new schedule, it is an adjustment. So if you aren't able to stick to it right off, then that's okay. But trying to have that schedule where it's okay, I'll work during this time, I'll do this during this time, but also making sure that we, in that schedule, we plan some time for self-care, and for being able to practice some of our coping skills. I think that's sometimes, particularly being at home and like you said, having the multiple responsibilities of needing to work and be a parent at the same time can be really difficult. So again, I think recognizing that this is a situation right now and trying to do your best to take care of yourself as much as you can.
Well, thanks, Mariah. I definitely appreciate those tips, and I know some of us at home will as well. So, Tiffany, I want to go to you now. I know there's been a lot of statistics and data around who has been impacted most by the pandemic. So, I kind of want to go into how do you address and help reduce the stigma around mental health?
Yeah, so the research shows us that the African American community has been hit the hardest due to pre-existing conditions, due to structural issues that have been, pre-existing long before COVID, but that we're seeing being exacerbated by this situation. I think that addressing the stigma really comes down to three things. I think it comes down to communication, so the way that we talk about mental health, to visibility, and to accessibility. So with regards to communication, I think that sometimes and this is a criticism that I have of myself actually, sometimes we have to take our clinical hat off as therapists and just speak to what people are experiencing rather than using what we've learned from school, right? So when we move outside of the terms, mental health, and instead say to people, have you found that you've been more irritated lately? Have you found that you've really been isolating yourself more? Even though there are ways that you could be reaching out socially, you're not really wanting to access those things. Have you really found that you've thought more about how afraid you are, or that you're finding yourself avoiding things that you would otherwise want to do? So really kind of speaking to the behaviors that people might notice in themselves, some of the thought patterns that people might notice, as opposed to calling it mental health. Because I think for some reason, we equate mental health with mental illness. And so when we hear that, we automatically think, well, that's not me, right? Like I don't fall into that category, when really mental health is just a terminology that we use in the same way that we talk about physical health or we talk about spiritual health. All of us have a degree of that, and should be checking on, where we are in that process. So I think, like I said, I think we have to change some of our vernacular with it at times to be able to remove some of the stigma. I think also with regards to being visible, I think research shows us that African Americans tend to want to go to African American therapists. And so I think it's important for us to be doing things like this, where we're able to have people see, like, there are African American therapists who are available. And we tend to attract, honestly, more, at least I'll speak for myself, I tend to attract more African American clients without ever having to say, like, that's my focal point, because they want to see someone who looks like them. They want to know that they don't have to explain certain cultural factors, that they don't have to explain certain levels of oppression that they experience and how that impacts their mental health, and we can just kind of get right to it. And research also shows us that as far as what makes therapy effective, a lot of it has to do with the therapeutic relationship. That is our largest factor in the efficacy of therapy. And so being able to be African-American therapists with African-American clients that feel comfortable and are able to build that relationship, that in and of itself is changing. And so I think it's visibility, letting people know that we're there, letting people know that we're taking on clients, that we're doing everything that we can to be available to people is going to go a long way to breaking down stigma as well. And then finally, I'll add in accessibility, which is, you know, as Damon and you all were speaking about, there is definitely a digital divide. And I don't have answers for exactly how we deal with that. And I think that we as a society are really kind of struggling with how it is that we capture everyone. What I do know is that from a marriage and family therapy perspective, we are able to do technology assisted services. And so what that means is that we can do internet, like Zoom, you know, these kinds of things that we're doing, hopefully over a HIPAA compliant line, but it also means that we can do phone services. So if people have access to phone services and they're in a space where they feel like they have privacy and confidentiality, we can access them in that way. And then I know with Best Life Mental Health Services, we have started saying, like, we're having a conversation with people about how much therapy costs. Like when people ask us, how much does it cost for services? We say, how much can you afford realistically? Because we realize this is just a bad economic time for everyone. And we want to be able to be there for people as much as we possibly can.
And thank you. And it sounds like the first step for people to do is just to ask for help and to reach out for those resources, because like you said, there are therapists and there are services available for you if you do need to seek help. And so I really appreciate you providing that information for us today.
Absolutely. Can I add this just really quick? Another thing that I've seen be really effective is, and you know, I know not everybody's on Facebook, but we're streaming on Facebook now. So I've seen people when they post the statuses and say like tag Black therapists or that sort of thing, it usually does end up being, you have a lot of people who are looking at those statuses who are not saying that they're looking at it, but that's how they're finding out that there's resources that are available. So the more that people do those types of things, I think the more people know that there are services that are available.
Yes, and I definitely agree. And so if you are watching, just to make sure that you are utilizing those services and reaching out and really getting the help that's out there for you. So I'm going to turn this back over to my colleague, Patricia. We do have one more poll.
Okay, just one more. So we are launching it now. Definitely some great information thus far. I wanted to just pull in a plug while we were talking about coping skills and just different strategies that we can do to relieve stress while we are still practicing social distance. So Louisville Central Community Centers has been hosting health and wellness classes throughout the week, most of the time at noon. So that way, if you're working, you can do it during lunchtime. So we are having yoga classes on Mondays, and then we're having cardio classes on Tuesdays and Fridays. So you can find this information on our Facebook page or on our website at lcccnews.org. So you do not have to be the most fit person in the world. You know, it's not that type of environment. But what it does do is help you just to feel better. So you engage with some other people over Zoom, you know, you laugh a little and you get to move because, right, everybody's been talking about, you know, a lot of our bills are going down, right, our gas because we're not driving. The food bill is going up. I don't know how many times I hear the refrigerator open throughout the day. So let's just move a little bit more and take advantage of those classes because I know I said for me, I'm not coming out of COVID 40 pounds heavier. It's just not going to happen. So, all right. So we've got some results coming in. We're just going to give it a few more seconds. And I think, you know, just the adapting to this new normal, there's still just so many unknowns. It looks like majority of the people who have answered so far are saying sometimes they feel like they're adapting well to the effects, but it's an evolving thing, right? So it's like, okay, we have to take it as it comes. I think we've all learned, though, that we're a lot more adaptable than we thought. I know I have, right? Because we talked about being at home, and you have to learn how to be a mom, an employee, a cook, you know, a housekeeper, because everybody's cleaning more. Then you got to run to the store. So we are definitely resilient, I will say. So thank you all for participating in our polling, and I will turn it back over to Janicia.
Thank you, everyone. So before we get started, I want to open up just for the panelists. If any of our panelists would like to add anything else before we move forward with our Q&A, you can do so at this time.
Yes, I would like to kind of piggyback on what Tiffany had alluded to in terms of what the data says in reference to African Americans. And actually, more specifically, there was some great information, Tiffany. But more specifically, you know, what she's speaking of is 12% of the whole state of Kentucky, 12% of the population has died from COVID. You know, we're Black. 12% who have died were Black. So, and according to the same data, roughly around 30% of Blacks patients were hospitalized for having complications from this virus. And so understanding the data, you know, compared to 13% of the white patients, you know, so the data and this data came from the Kentucky Office of Health and Equality. And that data shows that Black Kentuckians are more likely to die of asthma, higher mortality rates, cancers, and have a higher rate of diabetes than whites. But if you look at the CDC information, CDC is saying they identified that age and underlying health conditions such as diabetes, chronic lung disease, as well are high risk factors that could contribute to serious complications from the virus. So this is why this platform is very important. We got to look at the data. We got to look at how it's impacting our population, so we can be proactive and take the necessary steps to help our families in need.
Yes, and I definitely agree. Would anybody else like to add anything?
So let me jump in real quick. We do have a few questions. So let me just put this out there, and one of the panelists, if you want to jump in, and then if you have any additional thoughts, please feel free to add those as well. But someone asked, what is being done to support the children's mental health, especially those who are living in unsafe and unstable homes where mental health was an issue prior to COVID-19?
I was going to say, and actually wrote it in on the box, but for one, I know I work with a lot of children and students and families in JCPS. So JCPS has opened a JCPS care line. It's 313-2272. So families can call that number and they can be given information about mental health resources, food, clothing, utility assistance, basically any needs that the family has. But also to touch on that, I know me personally working with CPS, the courts, JCPS, we've all been in a lot of contact with each other, and even more than we normally would, because we don't have that face interaction with families. And also along with that, and this is kind of going back to what Tiffany was talking about, but I wanted to reiterate that I think that something the community isn't aware of is what a big population of African American therapists there are. And we all work very closely with one another. We collaborate together. And I think probably more recently, because of COVID, it's probably brought us closer together. We have a Facebook group where we're always talking about new ideas and ways to collaborate. We, reach out to each other if we need someone to refer to. So I just wanted to reiterate what she said, like going to Facebook and tagging your friends, going to JCPS. Every JCPS school has a list of therapists that they refer to. So even if it's not for your child, but for yourself, that's a good starting point. And then also there's a website called Psychology Today that you can find a lot of the therapists as well. So there's lots of different ways. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware where to access mental health.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren. So we've got another question that came in that said, would a grassroots mentor training and community building project be something that any of you feel like you could support? And such a project would expand regular contact and support to families that are on the block in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know one thing that we're going to be doing under the Minority Mental Health Project, we'll be offering a scholarship. We were looking at, the structure of that right now to promote more minorities to get into social services, specifically, within the therapeutic discipline. And so I'm hoping that we can do our part in promoting that in the underserved communities, because what Lauren was alluding to, yes, we are tight, and I'm so impressed with the coming together as clinicians here in Louisville, especially African American minority clinicians. It is so impressive, because I firmly believe that the more we collaborate, the greater impact we can have on the masses. And so I'm really impressed with this, and I appreciate you all hosting this platform. So we're going to try to give a scholarship in order to promote African Americans and minorities to get into social services.
So just in general, in terms of, as the city, the economy is beginning to reopen, and people are really feeling an array of emotions about going back to work. Any thoughts or any recommendations on how to just manage the anxiety, the stress that people are feeling about going back to work?
Yeah, I would want to say that some of those concerns are valid. And so, I think it's kind of like holding things in two hands. So there's one side of it that there are some very, very valid concerns that are still out there about whether or not we're in the right space to be able to open up. And, depending on your work environment, whether or not you'll have an environment where you're able to continue to social distance and continue to maintain kind of proper CDC guidelines within the workplace. And I think now more than ever is a really good time to be advocating for yourself in the workspace, to be able to say, if I've been able to do my work, telehealth wise and be effective in that, as during this time, is it possible for me to do 50% in the office and 50% at home? Or being able to have that as sort of a negotiation between you and your supervisor or your boss at work. I realize it's not available for everyone. And so on the other hand, I would say there are a level, anxiety brings about what we call cognitive distortions, which is essentially where some of our thinking can get a little kinked up, and we have thoughts that are not necessarily rooted in reality. And so I would also say we have to be able to address some of those cognitive distortions. If we're thinking, if I step outside of my house, I have a few clients that I've seen that are afraid to go take walks, for instance. And, so we need to be able to address some of those types of things that, there are some very, important things that we need to be doing in order to safeguard our health at this time. But there's also some very important things that we need to be engaging in order to have levels of normalcy and be able to participate in society. And so if you're finding that you're having some fears that may be to the level that they're keeping you from being able to do the things that you need to do, that's a great thing to seek out a therapist for, so that we can work on those types of things to get you into a thought process that will be more conducive for what your lifestyle will demand of you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany and Damon and all of the panelists. Just great comments and feedback. I think that is all the questions that I see in the chat box. Is there anybody that would like to ask any additional questions at this time? Otherwise, we will move forward.
Yes, if I may just highlight, and I think this is vitally important. I think on a political level or policy level, I think we need to kind of look at this and really advocate for there to be a more solid investing in our social infrastructure, which promotes, poor standard of living, economic deficit, and also productivity decline. And so I think on a policy level, we need to kind of look at that and look at maybe putting together a committee to take this to the legislatures to really, so we can put something in place for our community, for future pandemics. Preferably it won't happen again, but at least we're being proactive and putting something in place solid investing on social infrastructure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I will turn it back over to Janicia if you want to wrap up, if there's any final words from the panelists, and then we can go to closing remarks. Are you still on?
I am.
Okay.
So we're gonna go ahead and move to the next slide. I don't know if you all can see on the screen. There we go. So just to kind of showcase that there is resources out there for you if you need it, I've included each and every one of our panelists' contact information. You don't have to worry about trying to screenshot this. This will be available for you in our post survey that will be sent to you electronically after the event. And so you will have this information if you would like to seek out services or you just need help or need someone to talk to. This information is available for you.
So we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio, Janicia. So just to reiterate, the information will be sent out. And just before we turn it over for closing remarks, let's just give each of the panelists just 30 seconds, any final remarks or something that you want the audience to take away from today. So just starting with Tiffany, you go ahead first.
Sure. I think more than anything, I just want for people to be easy on themselves, to know that this is stressful for literally everyone. And if you've been finding yourself trying to push yourself to be even more productive now, or even more, I don't know, to have more output now than you would at any other time, it is hard to quantify the impact of on mental health. And that is one of the reasons it's taken so long for society to take mental health seriously. But there is a huge impact on our mental health when we have so much change so quickly and so many unknown factors about what life is going to look like going forward. And so even though you may not be able to see that in your life, please know that it's there. Please know that you're not alone in that all of us, even us as therapists, are all feeling that. And please just be gentle with yourself and listen to yourself and honor your limitations.
Thank you. That was great advice, and I'm definitely taking it all in. So let's move right on to Mariah, please.
Just to kind of reiterate, as far as like the coping skills go, kind of what Tiffany was speaking to as well, like use the terminology of giving yourself some grace, because this is a difficult time for everybody, and recognizing that if you are struggling right now, that's okay. This, like I said, is a very difficult time, but if you are really reaching out to those resources and the supports that you do have, and not necessarily worrying about what that means or what it says. It can just be as simple as you're struggling right now because there's a lot of change, and that's okay. And that's why we have the resources such as this organization and all of the wonderful clinicians on this panel who are here to help and support you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Lauren, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
I think what Tiffany and Mariah said was they both had excellent advice, and so same. I'd just like to reiterate that it's okay to not be okay right now, and don't let any barriers prevent you from getting the help you need or being able to talk to someone, because there's lots of providers in the city. We're all working to overcome the barriers. I think one of the panelists mentioned before that thank goodness insurance companies have opened up, and there's all kinds of flexible ways to meet the needs of everyone, whether that be phone or things like this as far as Zoom. I even know there's some clinicians that are starting to see people in the office. Our office is open limited starting next week, and there's clinicians going out to homes and sitting on porches and sitting in the front yard. So please don't be afraid to reach out to any of us.
Thanks so much, Lauren. So Damon, last but not least, please go ahead.
Yes, again, thank you all for this discussion. Thank you, Tiffany and Lauren and everybody just for this discussion. So I would say just stay informed with reliable resources such as kycovid19.ky.gov. Stay informed with the cdc.gov. Stay informed with I think it's Go Andy, but Governor GOV Andy Bashir on Twitter. So just staying informed with the right information, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, you know, engage in regular exercises and get enough sleep. And also don't isolate yourself, you know, connect with others virtually, and also take a break, you know, from social media. I think that would be very, very helpful. And so you just take those suggestions for self seriously and reach out to any of us if you need some support.
Thanks so much. We really just truly appreciate your collaboration, all of you, and just lending your thoughts, your expertise, your resources. And we, you know, just really appreciate the conversation. I'm definitely, as I said before, taking heed to this. It's just important that, you know, we all check on each other. I love the message that we're consistently receiving from our governor, you know, that, you know, together, Kentucky. And even those of us that sometimes appear strong and don't ask for help, I think it's important that, you know, we check on our colleagues, and we check on our friends and our family, and just say, are you okay? So that, you know, we can all continue to just monitor each other and ensure that we get through this. So again, we say thank you. And this will not be the last time that, you know, we collaborate on this, because it's definitely a part of our mission at Louisville Central Community Center to support, you know, mental health and brain health and, you know, trauma-informed care. So at this time, it is my pleasure to bring to the forefront my boss, the CEO and president of Louisville Central Community Center, Mr. Kevin Fields.
Thank you, Patricia. And let me just first start by thanking everyone who has participated in this production tonight. First and foremost, our panelists, and I'd just like to call for a virtual round of applause just to thank this group. You guys have provided an awesome community service tonight, and certainly we don't take it lightly in the fact that we really appreciate the collaboration and the partnership opportunities that you presented tonight. So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Damon. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Lauren. You guys are awesome individually, and you're certainly very impressive as a team. It's great to know that our community has such great assets, especially within the African-American community, because as one of you said, you know, we've been grappling with the mental health issue long before COVID-19. And I've been close and admiring the work that Damon Cobble's been leading with the Minority Mental Health Project, but get a chance to see that, you know, we've got a wealth of resources, a wealth of leaders in our community that's really equipped to help us to navigate through the mental health issues that we're really concerned about. Certainly want to thank my colleagues. Thank you, Patricia and Janicia. You guys did a great job producing this event tonight. And I know that there was a question that came up. Someone in the audience asked if we would be able to share this recording beyond Facebook, and the answer is yes, we will. So we will do that. And, you know, just in admiring this production tonight, I think we've got a lot to work with in just what you've done tonight. So we're committed to at least getting a good article, a paper out, summarizing what we've learned tonight from our experts. And certainly we'll be making the video available to the community in other platforms. I was taking notes as I was listening, and you guys covered the gamut of issues that I think are very pertinent to this mental health concern. And I really appreciate the points that were raised. I won't hit all of them, but, you know, we talked a lot about the negative effects of mental health in this COVID-19 pandemic season. So I appreciated the key points that were raised around self-care, the importance of self-care. And I can tell you, you know, those of us who are involved in community development and especially who work in the nonprofit space, we know how taxing that is, you know, the commitments that we put out. And I can tell you this, this COVID-19 pandemic season, I wouldn't say it's been negative on my mental health, but it's actually helped me to reflect better because we slowed down a little bit. and we've just taken more time and focusing on things. We're not just in a rat race as much as we are in the day-to-day, at least in my case. So slowing down, I think, has been a part of my self-care. But I appreciate that point, Damon. And you also hit on a good one when you talked about the digital divide. So we've got to address that because it's very clear that everyone needs digital access in this time when we're depending on virtual connections to services, to education. The kids are depending on it for school and for all kinds of economic reasons. We got to close the divide. So that's a real important issue. I also noted the comments that were made about life changes, you know, this whole issue of being uncertain. And we're still in a period of being uncertain about what the future holds in this pandemic. We don't know how long it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to come back in the future. And, you know, so there's a lot of uncertainty there. So, you know, staying mentally aware of what's going on is very important, but also not being so stressed out about it. And so I want to just wrap up and say thank you again. I want to thank our audience tonight. We tracked that we had over 30 participants who observed tonight. We appreciate you being with us. We want you to stay tuned to the work of LCCC. This is important work that is very critical to our strategic plan. So you're going to be seeing more of these virtual engagements. And I do want to take a moment to plug an upcoming event. We've got scheduled our annual meeting, which will be done in a virtual format on May 14 at 11 a.m. And we'll be presenting our annual report for 2019 and presenting a series of awards under the Lyman T. Johnson Distinguished Leadership Award initiative that we've had in place at LCCC for well over 20 years. So stay tuned for that. It's going to happen at 11 a.m. on the 14th. And there's a lot more. Patricia covered a lot. She's been doing a phenomenal job of engaging our community. I love the physical health work that we're doing as well. So I just wanted to recap some of what I heard. You know, mental health is a big issue for everybody, you know, and we've taken on this initiative at LCCC as part of our strategic plan under the term brain health education, because one of our panelists did recognize the fact that mental health often gets mislabeled as mental illness when we talk about it. And but the fact of the matter is every human being has a brain in order to live, and it's important that we maintain the health of our brain the same way we are concerned about having a healthy heart, a healthy set of lungs. We want to have healthy, every organ in our body, we want it to be healthy, but there's none more important than our brain. And there are ways to keep our brain healthy without there being a fear of it being labeled as being something wrong with someone. In fact, you know, the healthier the person's brain is, the more they can realize their gifts and their purpose in life. And so it's important to really stress the importance of having a healthy brain. And guess what? There's ways to do it in our lifestyle, in the way that we treat our bodies, the way that we nourish our bodies, the way that we exercise, the kinds of relationships that we maintain and the kinds that we stay away from. There's a lots of things that we can do in a day-to-day lifestyle to make sure we got a healthy brain. So you're going to be hearing more from LCCC around healthy brain health education, giving more workshops on this topic. And as Patricia said, you know, this partnership that you witnessed tonight, hopefully will continue. I'm committed to that. I know she is. So stay tuned for more. So thanks everybody for being a part of this event tonight. We really do appreciate each one of you.
Janicia,
Yes,
are you
ma'am.
still on?
I
So
am.
you want to give the benediction, as they say?
I want to just thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much to our panelists again for being able to join us here today. And thank you to Mr. Fields and Ms. Patricia. Thank you for just giving us this platform to be able to produce this. So thank you to the audience, like I said, for tuning in, and we really appreciate it.
All righty, well, everyone just continue to take care of yourself, and we will just say that this webinar is officially over. Have a great evening and be well.
Thank you, bye.
Bye. Yay! Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I think it went good. You did a good job.
Still like 15 people on, I think. There's still some folks on.
Look, I saw the panelists disappear, so I was thinking everybody was gone. They got off quick.
Yeah, we still have a few folks in here.
I see them now, 10. Well, I will go ahead and get off so that you can get out of there too, because I know you're at the office. And
Yep.
we will catch up in the morning. Or you can text me or call me when you get home if you want. It's up to you.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you.